Yo, chaos is breaking out in the Call of Duty League. Two massive roster changes today with Temp, MajorManiak, LAT, the Rokkr, and today we're going over the 5 unbelievable takeaways like stats and plays from the previous week, the Toronto home series, or of course you could say week 1 of stage 2 of the CDL. But we have a ton to talk about today and we'll be talking about all of it throughout this episode. My goodness, let's get right into this one. Let's go. First of all, of course, I've got to shout out the sponsor of this video, Draft Buff. If you haven't heard my rant about Draft Buff yet, it's fantasy football but for Call of Duty, and I highly recommend it, man. We have a community draft royale that you can join down below. The link is down in the description, also in the pinned comment. And you can compete against myself and the community in putting together a roster of Call of Duty pros to compete in and week out against all of us. Of course, you could also create a league and compete against your friends in a league, do a draft. And you can still do those now, even though the season is currently going on. But either way, you really can't go wrong. And finally, let's talk some Call of Duty. Let's get right in to the number 5s.
The 5s.
Oh yeah, we got transitions now. We're really moving up in the world. But you know, we go from the 5s down to the 1s with the best plays of the week and some of the crazy takeaways. And at number 5 this week, I mean, we got to talk about London. They can play, man. Paulehx came out and had a great showing this weekend, and London 3-0'd LAG in a pretty crazy series as a whole. Paulehx looked fantastic. Zed really came into his own and looked fantastic, as well as the 2 new players on the block for London, of course replacing Alex and Parasite. So there was a ton to take away just from London and how they played this weekend. It was really impressive. I loved how Paulehx and Zed specifically played off of each other in some of those chaotic moments, like on Apocalypse hardpoint. They looked fantastic, and man, that's such a good sign for London moving forward. And they're definitely going to be at least a competitive team now versus where they were at previously. So you got to be happy about that if you're a London fan, but at least they've got some hope now. And I am very excited to see what London can do moving forward. Their S&D is going to be very fun. And I like how Paul and Zed were playing that, and they looked very nice. So let's move on to our stat. Our first crazy stat of the day, you know, sometimes they're related to our takeaway, sometimes they're not. This one's not, but FaZe has played 14 S&D games, and Simp hasn't gone negative in any of them. That's crazy. Shout out R11 Stats on Twitter for tweeting that one, but that's a pretty wild stat off the rip here. 14 straight games for Simp where he hasn't gone negative in S&D. Just insane. And that takes us into our first best play of the weekend, Shotzi's 3-piece. Let's check it out.
So long, but if anything, that was testament to how great Seattle have played. Not only that hardpoint, hello, oh baby, Shotzi, go on for the 3rd, son. That was disgusting. Okay, I was trying to give Seattle some love, trying to tell them they were doing everything right, and then you go and do something like that.
A solid play there from Shotzi, coming in at number 5 for the 5th best play of the weekend. Things you absolutely love to see. Alrighty, let's head on to number 4 because we have so much to talk about today, especially with the roster changes. Let's go.
The 4s.
Alrighty, so this next takeaway, let's talk about the Rokkr and this roster change, which is crazy. So after this weekend, I was like, man, there is some legit issues with the Rokkr. It was pretty obvious. I mean, they blew it twice in round 11 to Search and Destroy, but they got 3-0'd both times, which was definitely disappointing if you're a Rokkr fan. I mean, the pain and suffering the Rokkr fans have been going through with it, just the disappointment's pretty tough. And just a lot of really ugly Call of Duty as a whole. I mean, some of those controls, specifically I think it was like the checkmate control against Florida was really bad. And after the series, I was left sitting there thinking like, man, there's just a big breakdown with how these players play off each other in the chaotic moments. And it felt like they needed that really fast-paced SMG who kind of thrives in that chaos, and that's exactly what happened. So the breaking news today, of course, is that MajorManiak has been benched by the Rokkr, and they've brought in Standy, one of the standout AMs, a guy that's been talked about a lot in the AM scene the past year and a half or two. Now, obviously, last year with Triumph during Modern Warfare, he played great, and they won Challengers Champs, and he was, I think, the MVP of Challengers Champs. And into this year, he's been playing extremely well with the stats that have been tracked so far inside the amateur scene. Shout out again, Carson on Twitter for making this happen, but he has a number 1 KD while using an SMG in hardpoint, number 2 in control at a 1.21. and still has a great SMD KD at a 1.14. So KD's wise, he's been great inside the AMC. And of course, that only shows us so much. But when you watch Dandy, you see an aggressive SMG, something that they desperately need right now with the Rokkr to pair with Attach, who I really do think Attach has been playing pretty dang well. He's made some awesome plays for the Rokkr so far this year, and at moments, Attach is incredibly impressive, but Priestahh just has not been getting the job done, and they're moving him now to a full-time flex, which is basically just running the second AR right now in the meta. Accuracy, Priestahh, Standy, and Attach as the squad. And this makes a lot more sense for this meta right now, I think, and how they wanted to play. Right now, it feels like every team needs an extremely aggressive SMG, then like that slaying, more patient SMG. Then you need an aggressive flex, and then you need a slower flex. And that's kind of the build right now for a successful team in a CDL. I mean, you're seeing that basically with all the top teams. And I think the Rokkr have it now. So I'm very, very interested to see this Rokkr team and how they could play in the future. I'm pretty optimistic about them and excited to see what they can do, man. It's going to be really interesting to say the least. And it was time for a change. They needed something. So this is pretty exciting as a whole. So that was kind of the takeaway turned into reality pretty dang quick. And like I said, I'm definitely excited to see what the Rokkr can do moving forward. So with our fourth shocking stat, again, not related directly to the Rokkr, but of course we gotta talk about Insight and Toronto for just a second. Obviously a very interesting debut for Insight and Toronto in this event against LA Thieves. We'll talk about them, later in a second here. Against LA Thieves, Insight dropped 18 kills on Miami S&D, which sets the CDL record for S&D kills. So shout out to Insight for setting that record. Of course, it doesn't break the all-time Call of Duty professional COD record, which officially is Crimsix's 20 kills, but supposedly Dashy had 20 in an offline match that wasn't streamed in an event back in World War II. So as far as we know, those are the two highest kills of all time, 20, and Insight was very, very close in that match, but it was still absolutely insane. And as for Toronto, Insight's definitely interesting. It brings definitely an extra weapon to that team. Obviously, it's a little bit weird with how good Methods was playing, and still, I'm not necessarily convinced that the change is going to make them like a great team, but Insight's gun skill is definitely insane. That is undoubtable. He was shooting absolute beams in some of those series, and Toronto's definitely an interesting team. We'll talk a lot more about them on the podcast tomorrow as well. And now for the fourth best play of the weekend, it's got to go to Simp with this quad feed that he dropped on Garrison. Let's check it out.
Now back in the driver's seat, 30 seconds left on this point.
At FaZe have effectively theory crafted who really needs to rotate if we can just break every hill and match, and we'll just on point with the aggression. And now the power positions, the quad feed from Simp, 6 spree from him, and now he's thinking about the artillery.
Alrighty, disgusting from Simp to say the least. And with that said, I think we can finally head into our number 3s. So let's go.
The 3s.
Into the number 3s, and this is interesting. So the takeaway is more of a discussion that we need to have, and it's Dallas versus Seattle. And what happened in this series? Is Dallas not as good as we think they are, or is Seattle arriving and they're finally finding themselves as a team? Because Seattle finally broke their curse and they won a control. They were 0-7 heading into this series in control. So we were all like, all right, I mean, this is over, This is absolutely chalk for Seattle. They're going to drop this control, blah, blah, blah. Nope, not today. They clutch it up in the control, and they're now 1-8 in controls on the year. Things you love to see. And we were talking about Seattle, like if they start winning controls, they're going to be a dangerous team. And this series was just so interesting because in the first hardpoint on Moscow, Dallas dominated like 250 to 135. Then you go into a checkmate S&D down to the wire, and there were good plays all throughout that S&D, and it finished 6-5. Dallas ends up clutching it up. Then you go to a control, Seattle wins 3-2 and on Garrison, and just really impressive from Seattle as a whole. Beating Dallas on Garrison is no simple feat. Then you head on to a raid control, and I'm like, all right, well, Dallas is gonna figure it out here. They'll close it out. Nope, they didn't. And Seattle took it handily, 250 to 149. And then you go on to an express S&D, and I'm like, wow, this is actually scary for Dallas on a new map. And basically because Crim got streaks, they barely clutch it up. Round 11, and it was an absolutely insane series. I mean, normally I save the series you got to go watch till the end, but I'll spoil it and say this one was definitely the best series of the whole weekend. Unfortunately, there were some FPS problems with what was going on with the stream, so the stream looked really, really bad. I ended up watching it in like 1.5 speed, and just so it wouldn't like destroy my eyes. And from watching the series, I come away thinking that Seattle might just be legit, that this team is here to stay. Like last week on the podcast, we were talking about how Seattle statistically has been a good hardpoint and a solid S&D team as well. Their control has just been so bad that it's basically given them no chance. And if they start bouncing back in controls and can start winning some, they're going to be dangerous. And so I really like Seattle as a team moving forward. And if they can continue playing like that, I mean, Priestahh, we even saw Priestahh dominate in the Apocalypse hardpoint, and he was going off against Florida, and Seattle won that series 3-1, and they looked really, really good there too. So I'm really, really liking Seattle. They were probably the biggest movers of the whole weekend on the way up the power rankings, and so we might talk about that on Wednesday, maybe, we'll see. Either way, just awesome series. I'm still pretty confident in Dallas, but there were some question marks after that series with how they were playing, specifically in a few moments inside the control, and in that raid hardpoint was really bad. And so maybe Dallas just underestimated them, but overall it was a crazy, crazy series, and you definitely should go watch it. Let's talk about our third best play of the weekend. This was an awesome moment. This was OpTic making the comeback in control in a round 3v10. I thought it was a really, really cool sequence of plays from OpTic and how they played this. Let's check it out against the Paris Legion. Let's go.
Trying to hold on, but you see it. No respawns left. Legion 30 seconds. One more wipe needed. A lot easier said than done. But looking at the birthday boy to try to make the play. Does he read it? He does. Takes down Envoy off of that back Tiki position. Now's the chance for them to really start to dig their heels in. Looking for the picks. Aware that Chicago, they've only got 3 players, but there's 3.
It's all dead. That's all dead. They have to go. I mean, this was a 10 versus 4. Here we go. The last push. Classic going to be the first one up towards the money window. Scump's going to take him down. Formal. He's inside of Tiki, able to take down one. Dashy, Formal trying to hold on. Formal plays his life. Formal again and again, able to take down Skrapz and fire. Classic off a spawn, him and Aqua go, and there's one of those rounds. They clutch up.
Tough stuff there. Things you hate to see if you're Paris, but a fantastic play from OpTic, man. And they still looked very, very impressive in their one match of the week versus Paris Legion. And overall, if you're an OpTic fan, you still gotta be pretty dang happy with this team moving forward. And this upcoming weekend, the Rokkr's first match is against OpTic, so that'll be really fun. And they play the Mutineers next week, so OpTic's in a pretty fun spot. And then, you know, we'll get the Dallas matchup in 2 weeks or so. Overall, OpTic's in a really good spot to potentially walk away with the #1 seed in this group. We'll have to see. Let's move on to number 2. Let's go.
The twos.
Alrighty, so in number 2, we're mixing together our takeaway and our #1 stat. Our takeaway is that FaZe, shocker, is still incredibly good at Call of Duty. And then of course the shocking stat is that they set the CDL record for most series won in a row. They are now 10-0 in the CDL, which is just wild. And still playing some unbelievable Call of Duty. They've looked absolutely insane. They 3-1 the Subliners and made it look pretty easy. And all of them were making individually huge plays all the way through that series. But not only that, they 3-0'd the Toronto Ultra with Insight, you know, the new player in that lineup, and that definitely was a little bit tough for Insight there. But as a whole, they now have 4 sweeps in the CDL, 4 3-0s, and they have the first #1 overall team KD in all 3 game modes. They have been absolutely dominant. And moving forward, they're in a pretty good spot to be sitting pretty nice for this next major as well. Atlanta FaZe is dangerous, and that's not going to change even on the new meta right now with the QBZ and with having Apocalypse hardpoint in there, having Express S&D in there. Atlanta FaZe is going to be tough to stop for a while still in the CDL. And just to wrap up all of these #2s here, let's check out the second best play of the weekend, Abezy's ace clutch versus New York on Express. Let's go.
Simp does not want it to happen again.
One boy back. Big wins. Abezy though. Abezy though. Abezy though. Absolute slaughter. It's now a 2v2. As the players swap positions, and the aggression now from NYSL, they're just going to push Abezy out. They're going to try to find something there. Clay, though, and DiamondCon, I love this. Transition straight across the map, through the carriage they go, in on towards the bomb site, but Abezy makes the read. Abezy throws one up top. Is he going to be able to land the stick? No, he lands the shots. Abezy finds another one. It could be the full ace if he can catch DiamondCon. The shots are in. DiamondCon, run. Don't let it happen. He's coming round the corner. That's the ace for Abezy, and what a massive round for Atlanta FaZe.
Absolutely crazy, and I did a breakdown video of that series, and I highly recommend go check that out. It didn't do very well, probably because of my thumbnail and because of the title wasn't great either, but I highly recommend going check out that breakdown of that series. Both sides played that very, very well. Of course, New York ended up winning that map, but still that play was awesome from Abezy and definitely impressive. Let's head on to the number ones. Let's go.
The ones.
Alrighty, 100 Thieves. I was gonna say that they were gonna be in a tough spot, and this was originally gonna be one of like the you know, number 5 or number 4, something like that, but we had to move it down to number 1 because of the roster change, of course. Let's start with the lead. Temp has been benched for Venom, one of the Westar players as well, and it's just insane. So Temp bites the dust here. They dropped a video on Twitter talking about it. Tej wants to run a flex role again, so they might be having Kenny move to the SMG with Venom running the SMG as well. So we see 2 of the main SMGs from the AM scene, Standy and Venom, get picked up. I think it makes sense as a whole, even though Temp has been playing pretty dang good. I mean, again, the LA Thieves 3-2 the Toronto Ultra, and of course, an insanely close series. And it was definitely not pretty Call of Duty. I mean, some of my notes from that series were like, I don't know about this one, man. But it definitely just wasn't impressive. I mean, like the control raid, I had multiple notes where I was like, man, not impressed with 100T here. They should have put them away like a minute ago or something along those lines. Like, there were so many moments where they could have easily blown them out. And you're just like, what are they doing? And that came to bite them in that final series where they end up blowing it 3-2 in a reverse sweep against New York, where you're like, bro, what are they doing in this control? This is so bad. And then New York comes back. They have the momentum. I mean, LA Thieves choke really bad inside, you know, the control, the hard point, and the S&D. They go down. New York wins the series. And the change was kind of necessary. But our shocking stat is that this is the first time that a top 5 team in the CDL makes a roster change. I mean, right now, LA Thieves are sitting at number 5 in the standings. I know it's early in the year. It's kind of a cheesy, shocking stat, but it is a fun one because it is a first in the CDL. And nonetheless, I am beyond excited to see what Venom can do in the CDL with this roster, having these guys around them. Having Tej running flex will be really, really interesting. And I mean, at the end of the day, we've seen what Kenny can do as a main SMG. So far this year, it hasn't really played out for him specifically. He's been okay at best. So I'm definitely excited to see what Tej can do as like a flex, running that second AR for 100T and what that could look like for them. I'm not convinced yet, but if Venom can come out here and absolutely dominate, which is definitely inside the realm of possibilities, then this team will be right up there with the best of them. So it's a high upside change for them. I don't think Temp is a bad player by any means. I really do think that Temp can be a contributor for a really good team in the CDL. So far, the play styles in that team with having Kenny, Temp, and Tej, there's too much of them trying to want, or their natural play styles were to do very similar things a lot of the times. And so you needed a little bit of a switch up. I'm still not convinced that the role situation for them right now with Venom will put them into the top 4. So I'm a little bit hesitant. I think they're definitely still going to be like a top 6 type team, but I'm not convinced that they're going to be now a solidified top 4 team with the change, but we'll just have to see. So now into our number 1 play of the whole weekend. This one changed the game. It's iLLey's 3v1 on Checkmate. And if this doesn't happen, they might have been in a pretty tough spot. Let's check it out. The best play of the weekend. Let's go.
We're coming through. Looney, veteran plays, holds his line, nerves of steel, kills are there. But now iLLey, a 1v3. Looney goes down, 1v2. Big tags. Octane's got to chase him down and get these kills. Surge on the hunt. iLLey, though, he may have juked him. Oh my God, is he still good? Oh my God, iLLey's still good. 1v1. What is happening? Octane, you've got to find something. He's just shot. Oh my iLLey! What in the name of Dallas?
Absolutely nuts, man. That's some craziness from iLLey, and the upside that we know that iLLey has as a player. He struggled so far this year, definitely not playing his best Call of Duty, what we know he can play, but moving forward, I still think that we're going to see a better and better version of iLLey as he learns this game specifically and how that plays out. Right now, it's just been a little bit of a struggle, and it happens, you know, but I'm definitely confident in him as a player. I know that was controversial in my tier rankings video of players putting iLLey still in the A tier, even though statistically it's been tough for him so far, but I really do think he brings so much to a team. Moments like that, those flashes like that, you see it from him individually, and I think it's only a matter of time that comes out for Dallas in like a full-on sense, series to series. But as a whole, those are our biggest takeaways of the weekend, the headline news, the 5 shocking stats, the 5 best plays, and there's so much more that we could talk about, which we're going to talk about on the podcast tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. We'll, of course, talk a lot more about Paris. We'll talk a lot more about Toronto. We'll talk a lot more about the Rokkr, a lot more about every single team in the CDL. So I hope I see you guys there in the comments as well. But again, shout out Draft Buff for supporting the channel. Click the link down in the description or in the pinned comment to join the Draft Royale to compete against myself and the community week in and week out. But as always, guys, I'm your boy, FaZe, and guys, we will see you next time. I'm out.